Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is in Management of Operations BUSN 6630 Project Instructions. So let's bring up the instructions. The contents, first I start with a project summary, then description, project submission requirements, composition, plagiarism, academic dishonesty, and then grading guidelines. First, project summary. The project will emphasize communicating results in a business environment. The project will consist of analysis of a case study, referred to as a memo assignment. The project will require two deliverables from each student, a PDF file and an MP4 video. Each student must perform, compose, and submit their own work, thus no examples are provided. And what I mean by this is that you conduct your own work, you perform and present and design your own video, and you do everything individually. I don't provide examples because when I do that, people will copy it and not really think about how they should do it themselves. So I want this to be yours. I want it to be individual. And that's why I say that. Projects may be submitted only once, and no project is accepted after the end of the course. That's strict. Make sure you get it in before the end of the course. The case study is presented within an assignment memo that I provide in Canvas. Each student will select one assignment memo, only one, and submit 3 deliverables: a 1-page response memo, which I'll describe below, a 1-page technical memo, which I'll describe below, and a 2-minute MP4 video based on a PowerPoint presentation. Submit both the response memo and the technical memo in one PDF file through Canvas. Submit the 2-minute MP4 video presentation through Canvas as well. So that's the summary. Let's get into the description. The memo assignments are small case studies. Each student will select one assignment memo that will require 3 submissions, a response memo, a technical memo, and a video presentation. Each memo is limited to 1 page. Submit both memos in one PDF file. The first page of the PDF file will be the response memo. The second page is the technical memo. The video presentation will consist of audio and video based on a PowerPoint presentation, limited to only 2 minutes, and submitted in MP4 format. A little bit more detail here. Design the response memo for the business environment that will effectively communicate a professional response to the party requesting the work in the assignment memo. And the emphasis here is the business environment. It is not a presentation for an academic environment. It's a presentation to the business environment. And the difference is below. The response memo shall be succinct but adequate, and I'm going to emphasize this succinct but adequate, and that's a business environment. Be very short but adequate, and don't elaborate. Don't talk about things that are unnecessary. As well as originally composed, professionally prepared, and following a common format, which I will identify below. The complete response memo must be limited to only 1 page. That's the response memo to a business environment to the client. 2, design the technical memo to outline the details of the approach and quantitative methods utilized in obtaining the results presented in the response memo. And notice this is an outline of the details of the approach and quantitative methods. Don't talk about it, outline the details. In other words, this is how I work the problem. So you're not working the problem, but you're talking about how you solve the problem. And I want to emphasize the details. A lot of people will talk about it, but not really give the details. It's giving the details of your approach, how you approached it, and the actual method you used in the details. The technical memo shall contain enough detail to support, describe, and adequately generate the technical portion of the response memo. And I think the key here is to adequately generate the details. If you talk about it, that's not good enough to actually generate it. It's talking about the details, follow those details, and then you can actually generate the technical portion of what's in the response memo. The technical memo shall be succinct but adequate, as well as originally composed, professionally compared, following a common format. The complete technical memo must be limited to only 1 page. So these two go together. One is for the business environment, one is for internal document. Design the video presentation as convincing argument supporting a specific objective to an audience defined in the assignment memo. In other words, some of the memos are for the client, some of them are internal. So there are different audiences that you design the presentation for, and it's audio, video, you are presenting your results. The presentation shall contain audio as well as video with text and visuals appropriate to the audience and objectives. The entire presentation must be limited to 2 minutes. The composition of the memos should reflect their different audiences, objectives, and scenarios as defined in the assignment memo. Although the response memo and technical memo are different, they must correspond. Any item presented in the response memo must be supported in the technical memo, and consider the response memo an external communication document designed for the business environment. The technical memo an internal support document for internal review and support for the response memo. So all of these go together. And this exercise in business is extremely valuable. What you tell a client are going external is different than what you say internal. The internal is the details, the external is only the results and what they need to know. Next, the submission requirements. The response memo must be no more than 1 page in length. The technical memo must be no more than 1 page in length. Both memos must be submitted together in one PDF file. Submit only 2 pages, no title page, no attachments, no appendices, and submit it through Canvas. Both memos are required to be composed in a professional manner, typed and dated, adhering to the following common format. The required format contains the title for each memo. In other words, down here, the title would be the response memo. The title is a technical memo with the number of the memo, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, adhering to the common format. The header information for each memo, date, to, from, and subject. So a header line 1 is the submission date. Header line 2 is party requesting the work. Header line 3 is your name. Header line 4 is appropriate title. Same for the technical memo. And the submission date, party requesting the work, your name, appropriate title. Actually, this to the party requesting the work, this is going to be to me, Dr. Harper. To say our internal team. It could be anything, but it's not external, it's internal. I will be grading on the title. I'll be grading on the header information. All of that must be there. If not, I'll count off. Okay, and then the content for each memo not to exceed 1 page. Examples below are where in the italics, the student provide the information in the italics. The video presentation must contain audio and video, be based on the PowerPoint presentation, and submitted in MP4 format. The production should adequately utilize the audio and video forms of communication distinct from the memo forms of communication. This sentence is very important. I will definitely count off if you don't do that. In other words, specifically, do not merely read the text of your memos for the video. Do not rely solely on the audio without video support. In other words, the video should contain and illustrate the objectives of the presentation with the audio as support for the motivation of the objectives. Consider the presentation to illustrate and represent objectives contained in the assignment memo rather than merely explain or state the objectives. The difference is the memos The response memo is telling them what they need to know. The technical memo is outlining the details of the analysis. And the presentation is describing the importance and describing, explaining, and illustrating the objectives to the client or to the audience. Next is project composition, plagiarism, academic dishonesty. I'll be grading on memo content and memo format. I'll be grading on memo content that contains technical accuracy, do everything correctly, answers the client request adequately. It's more of a business memo, not an academic. You answer the client's question. Don't answer things the client did not ask. And responds appropriately within the scenario presented. However, each student's judgment of content and composition should reflect their knowledge, personality, and communication style. But each memo must be original and should exhibit professional quality and value. I'll be grading on memo format, according to but not limited to the grading guidelines below, which is the last thing I'll cover. Collaboration is encouraged to aid in learning the material, but not required. But most importantly, collaboration is limited to the calculations, analysis, understanding of the content of the memo assignment, but not the creation or composition of the response memo, technical memo, or video presentation. In other words, collaboration is encouraged. Work together, learn what the answers are, but then when it comes to communicate, the response memo, technical memo, video presentation, you must do that all yourself. Each student is required to do their own writing, their own composition, production, and submit originally composed work. Essentially the same response memo or technical memo or PowerPoint presentation submitted by 2 or more students will receive a 0 and would be considered a violation of academic dishonesty standards. Academic dishonesty is cheating. The incident may be also reported to the business school and the University of Colorado at Denver for further action. Do not assist another student in allowing them to see a copy of your written work. That's academic dishonesty. Academic dishonesty includes copying from another student or allowing a student to copy from your work in part or in whole. If someone says, "Let me see what you did," no, because they're asking you to cheat. That's it. So don't do that. The purposes of the memo assignments are to test your understanding of the techniques, your ability to correctly apply the methods presented in the business context, and your ability to communicate these concepts in a business environment. In other words, if you understand it, if you know how to do it, you should be able to communicate it well. Finally, the grading guidelines for the project. Each memo must be self-contained, complete, descriptive, succinct, and limited to 1 page. Let's go through each of these. Generally, self-contained memo should not reference material in the other memo. For example, the response memo should not reference content in the technical memo. Some people say, "I got the answer and it's in the technical memo." Well, you've got to say the answer to the client. Don't reference it. They're not going to see the technical memo. The client sees the response memo. A complete memo would contain all the content to adequately achieve its objective. In other words, do not use appendices. Everything should be in that memo. Everything you're telling the client is there. A graph, a table, the numbers, the values, the results. Everything is self-contained and complete. A descriptive memo would contain a presentation that has literary competency. For example, do not submit a memo with only numbers or tables without descriptions. These are memo assignments. These are communication devices. Some people just have a table of numbers, have a table of equations. That's not a memo. I will not accept that. I will definitely count off of that. In other words, you describe, you explain what's happening. You can put the numbers in there if you describe what those numbers mean. A succinct memo A succinct would follow a universal business guideline of succinct but adequate. A memo should not contain unnecessary material. Let me emphasize this, not only for this memo assignment, but for business. A succinct memo would follow the universal business guideline. And let me bold that, underline that. The universal business guideline of succinct but adequate. In business, be succinct. Don't elaborate, be succinct, but be adequate. Say enough, but don't say too much. And sometimes that's more of an art. It should not contain unnecessary material. Don't elaborate unnecessarily. Specifically, point deductions include but not limited to the following. If you miss the titles of response memo or technical memo, I count off. Improper format. It's not typed. You don't put the header information. It's illegible. I can't really read it. I'll count off. More than one page, I'll count off. Incorrect statements. If you say something wrong, if the values are incorrect, your approach is not the right approach, I'll count off. It's not self-contained. It relies on information not contained in the memo, in my appendix, or in another memo, or in the video. No, it has to be self-contained. Not complete. Does not adequately achieve its objective. For example, a response memo inadequately or incompletely addresses the request in the assignment memo. For example, people will talk about the analysis but never really answer the client's question. So I solved the problem, but I didn't answer your question. So you have to address the actual requests from in the assignment memo. The technical memo, inadequately, incorrectly supporting items represented in the response memo. What people have done incorrectly, the response memo has an answer. The technical memo talks about everything that they did, but they never talked about the answer. They talked about all the wrong things. In other words, don't talk about what's not done, talk about what is done. So you say, here's how I solved it, and this is what was used in the response memo. Not descriptive, does not contain literary competency. Inappropriate response memo, for example, not addressing the business party requesting the work, not responding to the request, or responding to the wrong request. In other words, for this example, not addressing the party requesting the work. You're talking to the client in the response memo. Some people was talking to me. Here's what I did, Dr. Harper. I'm not the client. They're the client. So make sure you respond. If you don't do that, I'll count off. Not responding to the request. You don't really answer the question. You answer around it. You give information, let them decipher it? No. You say exactly what they need to know and responding to the wrong request. They didn't ask for that. A lot of people will give them information they didn't ask for and did not give them information they did ask for. So this is a business communication. Inappropriate technical memo. For example, not creating a memo beyond mere calculations. Unfortunately, a lot of people do that. I will, to extremes, I will count a 0 for the technical memo. Not adequately describing the procedure taken. They'll say, I used optimization. Well, that's not enough detail to understand, well, how did you use optimization? Linear, nonlinear? What technique did you use? Or not explaining the technical relationship to the results presented in the response memo. Say, oh, I use this, but then how did you use it to solve their problem? Okay. Not succinct, contains superfluous material lacking appropriate value. Missing response memo, missing technical memo, they both must be submitted at the same time. And at the same time means one PDF file, the first page of the response memo, second page of the technical memo, one file, 2 pages at the same time. So be very, very careful. You only have one chance to submit that in Canvas for the PDF file. So this represents a description of the project instructions. I encourage you to read it, refer to the instructions often, and good luck. And between now and the next time I see you, take care.